Live in. All right, we're live. What's up, everybody?
Awesome.
Welcome to another installment of Far Right or Far Wrong. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and today I got a special guest with me, the administrator of Trollitics, Danny Roldan. And what we're going to be talking about today is Donald Trump. Now, he's going to try and convince me that Donald Trump is a racist. I don't believe that. I don't have any evidence that even points me in that direction, and basically that's going to be the point of the show today. So he's going to basically come through. Thanks for coming on, Danny, and I look forward to the arguments that you're going to be making.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Anytime I can troll my way into a inflammatory discussion, I'll do it. That's why the group is called Trollitics. It's why I run the group as you band. We're getting really personal along
I think we're losing him.
off live because of trolling too. So it's all good. It's all good. So whatever you want to talk about, and if you want to talk about Trump and racism, I'm down for that, man. Whatever questions you got, you just shoot my way.
No, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So um, well, that was one of the big discussions. Is I don't know what the dude's name is like Anthony, right? Yeah, that guy. Well,
Sure.
this dude just decided to put me on blast because I posted a Pepe posting up, putting up his middle finger saying, wearing a shirt that says no white guilt on it. Now, he apparently took that as, oh, you're a racist because I posted it in an NBA group. And it was just about Trump. It was about Trump responding to LeBron James or something like that after his interview with Don Lemon.
Right.
So afterwards, you called me a right wing nut job.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. So
You kind of. I mean, it's really not. Listen, to be fair, you're a right wing nut job. But if you've ever witnessed me, and you probably haven't because you don't roll in these circles on the internet. But if you've ever witnessed me argue with someone who's like a Bernie fan or an Obama fan, I've called people left wing nut jobs and progressive nut jobs all the time. Also, so it's not really just singling out the right wing. It just so happens that you're right, you're far right. Your show is called Far Right or Far Wrong. So I mean, when we have the discussions about certain things, that's what comes out. If you've ever witnessed a discussion with me and someone who likes Bernie or who's a leftist, I mean, you'd see something totally leftist. I mean, you'd see something totally different. You probably get a kick out of it.
okay. All right. Well, so you would call yourself what? A radical centrist?
See, that's the thing. I don't really call myself anything. Matter of fact, I just had this discussion with a buddy of mine at work, and it's like people will like right wingers will call me a liberal or anti-American or progressive or something like that or Democrat, and
Oh,
you
well, you're
know,
definitely anti-American.
right. I was just banned from a pro Kaepernick group by left wingers. You know what I'm saying? Even though I actually support the movement that Kaepernick's doing, and I don't have a problem with NFL football players kneeling for the anthem, I was still kicked out of a group for expressing certain views that didn't match up with the doctrine or the dogma of the typical left wing nut job. So I'm left wingers call me a conservative Tea Party type. You guys call me a liberal, whatever, and other people will say, "Hey, you're a centrist." I'm not a centrist. There's a left and a right and a paradigm, and I'm not in the paradigm at all. I'm just on the outside looking in. I'm not in the middle of anything. I don't really see myself as in the middle of a paradigm at all. I'm just more like on the outside. Like I'm an alien looking at Earth, and you guys are just fighting, and I'm just watching it, man. I'm just observing, and I'm seeing what the hell's going on. So I'm like, I'm not in. I don't have a dog in any of the fights between the left and the right.
I
If that
think you're
makes
just
you
a troll.
on some, yeah. So at this point, yeah. At this point, I do more
By the
trolling
way, that's
than
not
I
that's
do
not an
serious
insult.
stuff.
You're just a troll. And
On
and
my
and
own
trust me,
entertainment.
I'm a troll too, but I'm a right wing troll. So
Yeah, but I can't really categorize myself, with anything. Like I'm very pro Second Amendment. I
well,
am.
no, you got there's kind of a point to what you're saying because when I met you and you added me to the group, I was we were actually arguing with some like Nation of Islam like black supremacist folks. I think.
It's fun. It's more fun to actually debate them in person because I live in New York, and they're in Manhattan and stuff like that, and they dress up in like the Power Ranger gear. And I remember one conversation I had with them. They weren't Nation of Islam; they were Black Israelites, and those are ones that really dress up in costumes.
Oh, those are the guys out in Harlem.
Yes, and they were actually in Times Square one day when I was out there, and they were saying because I'm white that I'm gonna burn, and my mom's gonna burn, and it's just the way it is because I'm white. And I said, you know what? I let them go with that line for about 10 minutes until I told them, as a matter of fact, you know what? I'm actually half Puerto. My dad was born in Puerto Rico. My entire dad's side of the family, besides me, my brother, and a handful of others, not only were they all born in Puerto Rico, but they all speak Spanish. I'm one of the few people in my family that doesn't speak fluent Spanish. And then he changed his tune and said, okay, well, then you'll be good then, and your dad, but your mom, no. I go, so wait a minute, just like 4 minutes ago, I was going to burn in hell because of the way I look, because I don't really look Puerto Rican. I look more Italian than I do Puerto Rican. But now that I've told you I'm half Puerto Rican, now I'm fine. So, it was obvious that it's just it's just racism. It's just like you're prejudging me by the way I look, not knowing what my ethnicity is or anything like that. It's funny how that all of a sudden that whole thing changed. So it's fun to debate them in person, dude. I mean, it's always fun to, as long as you don't take it too seriously, man. That's all I could say about stuff like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, look, I agree with you. I'm like really, really very much against people going around with prejudicial attitudes towards groups of people for whatever reason it may be. And I don't think you could find any evidence to the contrary on anything that I've posted in the past, at least. I may say things about general trends that make people uncomfortable, but I have never actually said anything that says go out and when you meet individuals, think of this. I mean, because you're not supposed to. That's not how you're supposed to go about doing things like that.
Right.
I think what was it? You called me a racist during my segment on my hate fact.
They're, according to the IQ statistics, they're borderline.
Yeah, but they do.
Mentally retarded. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. See, that line of thinking is not new. That's about a century and a half old. It's Civil War era, not in the United States. I'm talking about the Belgians, the French, when they were colonizing Africa and stuff like that, or when they were visiting, when they were in Australia and Papua New Guinea and meeting all these tribal cultures and these traditional, hunter-gatherer cultures that they were encountering in Africa and in the Australian outback, they would administer IQ tests and give them intelligence exams, the ones that actually didn't kill them on site. And they would score low on them. And like the IQ test was a standard that was developed by Europeans for a certain culture context. I understand that, a lot of them it's pattern recognition, and you would think that, it's pattern recognition. The brain should work one way no matter what culture you're from. It's not, how can an IQ test be culturally biased? But you got to ask yourself something. I mean, the people that scored low on these IQ tests, they're traditional hunter-gatherer. They're third world people. Am I right? I mean, we agree with that. They're in the third world.
Yeah, sure.
Most of them are of traditional societies like African pygmies or like the New Guinea Highlanders, Aboriginals in Australia. But they've been existing in that environment, in those environments, in that land for tens of thousands of years, unbothered. They haven't progressed technologically or as far as a society since the hunter-gatherer days. Now, in order to survive, especially in the outback and places like that where it's dangerous, don't you think pattern recognition would be very, very vital to survival? I mean, recognizing pattern when it comes to hunting, avoiding predators, just overall basic survival, making sure that you do not eat certain poisonous food and knowing how to cultivate certain plants and not cultivate others. I mean, there were back about a century ago when white Europeans first arrived in Australia and Papua New Guinea and in the Pacific Islands.
Uh-oh. I think we lost them temporarily.
A lot of this is where people have been surviving for thousands of years. Now, the explorers had the technology, they had the IQ, but they couldn't survive there where people have been surviving. If you take that into context, into consideration, there's got to be some pattern recognitions that white Europeans weren't recognizing in a foreign land, in a inhospitable habitat that people can recognize easily. I mean, we've seen it throughout history. Anthropology teaches us these things about, you know, the Norwegians landing in Greenland and not being able to survive but for like maybe 800 years, where the Inuit have been surviving for thousands of years and still survive today.
Yeah, but anthropology teachers teach all sorts of crazy things. Now, I'd like to you've been going on for a while, so I'm gonna try and respond to at least everything that you said. The first thing I'm gonna say is that this whole idea that there's a Western bias in IQ is absolutely ridiculous. There was first came out when they used language like regatta was one of the words that they used in there. Things that you would understand, things that are Western cultural context. Modern IQ tests don't even use words. They're literally just graphs showing different patterns, and you say, okay, what's the logical progression to this pattern versus the other pattern? There's literally zero cultural context throughout this whole test. And furthermore, when we go into these other people groups, survival instincts are not the same thing as intelligence. Intelligence is the ability to learn, things quickly, the ability to see patterns in things quickly. It doesn't dictate whether or not you can learn something. It dictates how quickly you can learn it, how efficiently you can learn it, and how practically you can bring it forward. It also measures your ability to see things in a bigger context, in a bigger picture. It allows you to look at things philosophically. It allows you to these are things that higher IQ people can do that lower IQ people can't do.
Well, wait a second. So
you're trying to tell me that the people that survive nation with a sub 90 IQ is lacking a civilization.
First of all, I wouldn't say that they're lacking civilization. Second of all,
I'm saying civilization as in a civilization. I agree. Tribes are their own little things. They're sort of like a civilization, but they're not really a civilization. They can't
you don't think that people
under any underlying principles or any philosophical underpinnings outside of their own little tribal practices. And not only that, when these people are isolated for years on end from one another, there isn't that many marital prospects when everybody gets married. There's a lot of inbreeding that goes on in tribal communities, and that inbreeding leads to lower IQs and fanatical beliefs. And you can see this happening in the Middle East as their civilization actually de-evolved over time. So when I'm talking about IQ like this, I'm just using it as a means to explain why they're not moving forward ever.
Well, I mean, a lot of these people haven't moved forward for 10,000 years, and many of them are not interested in what our society has to offer. I use New Guinea for example, right? You fly into New Guinea right now, or you fly into Australia right now, right? And you see people a couple of generations removed from the first contact with people that are living as hunter-gatherers. And you see ethnic people working in the hotels, working at the airports. They know how to read, they know how to write, they go to school. But yet they have family that still don't know how to read, that are still living in a tribal society. And you're taking the same people, same people genetically, and putting them into a Western society, into civilization, and
Western society has uses for people with low IQs. It's not like we don't have jobs that people with low IQs can do, and that's one of the reasons that IQ wouldn't be a criteria for any immigration standard in my country.
I'll give you some personal experience about IQ.
And by the way, hold on, before you say that, you do realize that the life expectancy in Papua New Guinea is 65 years old, right?
I think it was a little lower than that in the tribal
society. This is according to Nomia Atlas.
No, it's a little lower than that if you counter in the traditional societies. It is. It's a little. I think it's a little lower than that because obviously they don't have
It's an objectively worse life to be in Papua New Guinea.
But see, here's the thing, though. I don't think we are in position to judge that because obviously, if they want to leave the tribe, they can because people have done it. I mean, we're talking about people who have lived a certain way for, like I said,
the smart ones can with the high IQs, which exist, by the way. There are many exceptions. But come on, man.
So you think the people can't just? Well, how about this? Well, wait a minute. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Why doesn't everybody leave? If everybody can.
Okay,
it's because they're not smart enough to.
Hold on one second. One second. You know what rum springer is?
What? Who? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Who?
Do you know what Rumspringa is?
Rumspringa? No, tell me.
Yeah, Rumspringa. It's you know who the Amish are, right? You know the Amish. They live backwards. They don't have any electricity.
Yep.
Okay, Rumspringa is when an Amish kid turns a certain age. It's kind of like almost like a bar mitzvah.
Okay, I know.
They go and they leave.
Yeah.
And they have a choice whether they want to come back or not. So you're trying to tell me the people with the higher IQs are the one that choose to not go back to the Amish, and the Amish are just stuck with a bunch of low IQ? Is that the reason why the Amish are living in more traditional societies with more electricity? And mind you, they're riding their horse and carriages on the same roads that people are flying by them in Ferraris and BMWs, and they see it, and tourists are coming there taking pictures with their smartphones, and there they are churning fucking butter by hand. But they choose to live that way. Is it because they have low IQ? No, it's because that's the culture that they were raised in. They have an opportunity to leave. They're actually encouraged to go explore life with quote unquote the English. And some of them leave and they never come back. But most of them do come back because they want to be part of the family. They've grown up in a culture. That's all they really know. The outside world is scary to them. And I don't really think it has anything to do with IQ at all. Listen, I'll give you a personal experience about IQ. My son, Jackson. He's 6 years old. He's in the he just graduated kindergarten. He was having nothing but behavioral problems his first month and a half in school, to the point where he was kicked out of class. They didn't know what to do with him because he was misbehaving so bad. So to make a long story short, they sat him with the school psychologist for a day to evaluate him, and he was reading books that were 5th grade level. They gave him an IQ test, and he scored 128 on that IQ test. That's near genius. I have a son who has 128 IQ. They put him in a new class with better teachers. He did better. In New York City, we have a gifted and talented program, and you have to take a test to get accepted into that gifted and talented program. For everybody from his teacher to the principal, assistant principal, school psychologist, social worker, all encourage me. Please take it. As a matter of fact, I was late to sign up for it, and they made an exception, and they kind of like stuck my paper in there because they really wanted him to take it. And you know what happened when my son took that test? He bombed it. He completely failed. He did well on the written exam, but on the verbal command, he didn't want to pay attention. He couldn't pay attention. He couldn't sit still. He didn't want to participate. The test was too long. He couldn't focus anymore, and he completely bombed the test. Completely bombed. And we'll take it again next year. But, I mean, his IQ level didn't help him get into a gifted and talented program. He's still in the same class as all the other kids who probably have scored normal IQ. So,
like I said, IQ doesn't measure how well you're going to do in school. A lot of horrible students have very high IQs. The point is when he's an adult,
so why are we putting emphasis on IQ?
It's going to be far easier for him to measure. Hold on. It's going to be far easier for him to learn things as an adult. He's going to be far more able to go and do things that he wants to do and put his mind to because of that high IQ. Even if he's going to just go and be a mechanic, because learn how to be a mechanic so much more efficient than someone else going to as an adult.
First of all, that is not a guarantee. Number one, and number two,
nothing's a guarantee, but that's the general truth.
You have savants that have IQs in the 200s. They need constant long-term care. They're like dependent, like children are. You have a homeless.
Of course.
You have porn. I read an article a few years ago. There's a porn star with 160 something IQ that got into Mensa, and yet she's doing fucking porn. It didn't help her get anything. She's doing. I mean, maybe her IQ is smart enough to understand that if I do porn, I make a shitload of money without really doing much work.
I think you just answered your own question there.
But dude, why are we putting so much emphasis on IQ when it really doesn't?
I'm not putting that much emphasis on it. Like I said, the only thing I'm doing is using it as a general measurement to show why certain groups of people have yet to create any reasonable philosophical underpinning for their civilization.
But where are you getting that they don't have any philosophical underpinning? But
well, okay, tell me this. Who's Ethiopia's Plato? Who's Ethiopia's Socrates? Who's Ethiopia's Augustine? Who's Ethiopia's? When was their Renaissance?
I don't know. Google it. Look it up, man.
I have Googled it. There isn't one.
But what is it? Well, here's the thing. You're not gonna. Who says you're gonna learn about stuff like that? I mean, you have tribes like the Pygmies, or you have like even Indians.
And they'll never, ever produce a Socrates or a Plato unless they get really, really lucky in the genetic lottery.
Who cares, man? It does.
I don't care. I know that. I get that. I don't really care. It's no reason to judge the pig.
There are people that have been living this way for a very long time, and they're fine. They are fine. You may not. Listen, I will never live that way. I will never move to Africa and live with a hunter-gatherer society. I will never move to Peru and live with a hunter-gatherer Indian society, or New Guinea, or Australia, or in India, or wherever else they live, even in Siberia. I would never do that. But
you don't understand, the average life expectancy of a pygmy is 16 to 24.
But listen, here's one thing you got to understand about evolution, bro. Evolution really doesn't care how smart you are or what your IQ is or what your life. I mean, it cares somewhat what your life expectancy is. Evolution only cares about. I'm
not saying evolution's making them die young. I'm saying they die young because the society that they created, the one without any philosophical underpinnings, is literally getting them killed.
Yeah, but you know what's not getting them killed?
They don't farm. They don't take care of themselves. They die.
Here's the thing. You know what's not getting these people in these traditional societies killed? Non-communicable diseases, preventable diseases, like what kills us in the first world, like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, strokes. What kills these people the most, and you can look it up, accidents, infection,
stupidity,
getting pricked by a poisonous thorn, things in their environment that
getting them killed. Yeah, you're right.
Things in their environment that would probably kill us within a week.
No, they wouldn't kill us. They wouldn't kill us within a week. That's my point. I could learn how to survive there. I already know how to survive here. You could literally send me out in the middle of the woods with a knife, flint and steel, and a backpack, maybe a canteen, and I can survive.
And you could survive with predators, not knowing which berries.
Yes, I could.
Not only that, but other tribes. The biggest threat to your survival is the same thing as the biggest threat to their survival is running into other tribes that are unwelcoming.
Oh, I agree with that too. That's the other problem with not having a philosophical underpinning. Why are these people groups incapable, by the way, of unifying as tribes?
That's not exactly true. Because
they are, unless they don't do it. When does it happen?
Listen, there are some tribes that listen. I've been reading books about this stuff. I've been researching stuff. There are tribes that get along, and there are tribes that are more insular. That they don't like any outsiders whatsoever. And you know what? As long as you don't trespass on their territory, they won't trespass on yours.
In 1010 AD, not only did tribes unify, an entire continent of people in Europe unified.
It was
under one religion. They actually fundamentally changed the philosophical underpinnings of their society to go from Roman paganism to Catholic Christianity, and they chose to do that. I don't see Africans being able to do that because I don't see it happening. They don't unify. They're very tribal. They're very divided. Yeah, and if they were to get over that, it would help them. Because first off, the inbreeding is really hurting their IQs.
Not the inbreeding, and it's not that the inbreeding is hurting their IQ, Joe.
Inbreeding definitely. Are you telling me that inbreeding doesn't make people dumber? Because the South has a lower IQ to this day because of the inbreeding in the United States.
I don't know if I really don't know if it's the inbreeding. I don't know if the South really has a lower IQ than the North.
Oh, it's absolutely the inbreeding. That's a fact.
Well, here's the thing. You're comparing European nations in 1010 AD. We're talking about thousands
that were still more developed than these countries today.
Well, let me answer it. You're talking about even in 1010 AD, Europeans were thousands of years removed from having agriculture. These tribal societies, traditional societies, don't have much agriculture. They're hunter-gatherer. So they're very territorial.
Why? We were hunters-gatherers.
I'm explaining it why. They're very territorial, and they don't get along with other tribes mostly because since they don't practice husbandry, they don't domesticate animals, and they don't really domesticate plants that much. Resources are scarce. When you're talking about hunting game and hunting ground and gathering wild fruit, you don't have there isn't enough resource to go around to be buddy with tribes. You understand? You know what I mean? Like, you can't just have tribes coming to your town and hunting your wild animals because you don't have some of those people go 2 or 3 days without eating. Starvation
My
is a big
question is,
problem.
why don't you think Europeans had those problems before they gained civilization? They started as hunter-gatherers too.
way in the past, Europeans had agriculture, a gift given to them by the Middle East.
Okay. So why is the Middle East?
Agriculture has changed the landscape of the world. When Europeans came to the New World, the Indians here already had agriculture. They already figured out. It took them thousands of years later than people in the Middle East.
Maybe two. Well, hold on. Yeah, like 2 tribes figured out agriculture, and it's true. And they had a civilization. They had a barbaric civilization, but they had a civilization. Hold on. So there was like 2 tribes. A majority of North America, South America, Central America was not that civilization. It was hunter-gatherers.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're wrong. The Iroquois had an entire nation. The Aztecs and the Aztecs.
I said most of North America, most of South America. There were civilizations, but most of them didn't have agriculture.
No,
I just said most.
Of course, they had agriculture. We all know the stories about 500 years ago. The way they used to sacrifice people on the fucking pyramid to make the corn grow.
Most of them.
Corn was domesticated. They weren't eating wild corn.
I didn't say none of them. I said most of them.
Yeah. Well, if you're talking about most of them, the Incas were a very big nation.
Sure, they weren't. They weren't from South America though. Most of South America
that was Peru, and then you had the Aztec and the Mayans and the Zapotec. There were many of them, dude, many of them. That took a large portions of Mexico, Central America, Venezuela.
Like I said, I didn't say there were many of them. We're talking about before the colonists. But it
doesn't matter. We're talking about a body of land larger than the continent of Europe that was inhabited by civilizations equal to Europe. To the point where
okay, hold on. No, not even close to equal.
How about this? I'm not saying it. When Spanish explorers came and they went to Tenochtitlan, however you pronounce what is now Mexico City, and cities that when they went back to Europe, they said the city was paved in gold. They said it was more advanced with an aqueduct and more advanced with the sewer advanced with the sewage system than any city that these explorers had ever visited in Europe.
This is my thing. Europe was literally in the process of going through a dark age at the time that those colonists left. Before that, in the Christendom, in the time of Rome, we had things like that times 10, and it was years before this civilization.
Well, that's right. It was a long time until South American civilizations rose to the level of Europeans. Now, two things that here are two things.
It's because there's no tribal, listen, and they have
two things.
On average, literally an entire standard deviation lower IQ than an average European.
I'm not really worried about that because the people
I'm not worried about it. I'm just saying as an explanation.
Yeah, but I don't really judge a society based on that because if you gave
judge society based on many
things, you gave IQ tests to the Mayans back then, people that developed a sophisticated calendar and sophisticated agricultural systems and mathematics and astronomy, they probably have IQs in the 60s also. So I'm not really big. I'm not really big on the whole IQ thing. But what I will say is
that's true. Honestly, IQs, at least most IQ experts think that IQs don't really change over time. They can get higher, like maybe a little bit by I think 15 points, 16 points, something like that is the max from education. But for the most part, where you start out has been relatively static throughout human history. So they would probably have had similar IQs to what they have today, give or take about 15 points.
I mean, but listen, man, you're not neither me or you have an IQ at genius level, and I have a good job.
I don't know. I haven't taken an in-depth IQ test. I took an online one once. You'd probably be around if you would take one supervised by a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and you were timed on it. You probably score about 107 to 110. Which is slightly above average. I had an IQ test when I was in the 3rd grade. I scored a 119 on it. Now, I scored a 119 on my IQ test, which is above average. I was actually a year ahead. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. Well, what I'm saying is I'm a college dropout, and I pick up garbage for a living. So IQ really doesn't mean anything if it's not going to be a guaranteed translation into any sort of economic success or health success. I mean, that stuff really doesn't matter.
But it has been. Like I said, areas with lower IQs have less developed civilizations. That's true almost to a T, unless the area is ravaged by war at the time.
You're measuring the success of a people of whether or not they have a civilization.
Not all the people, just
you
the
have to remember something, dude.
General understanding.
But this is something you have to remember.
Of their civilization, the general understanding of their civilization. I'm not talking about individual people. I'm talking about a general trend.
Right. And in these traditional societies, they have been living the same way for tens of thousands of years. They've not gone anywhere. They've not gone anywhere. Despite the low IQs, they've not gone anywhere. Their languages,
yeah, you're right. They've gone nowhere. They haven't gone up at all.
But what do you see as up? I mean, what do you really see as up?
I see as up as gaining, thinking about things like philosophy, developing agriculture, going around, unifying territories, conquering territories. That's usually a sign that a society's on the up.
I'll tell you this, right? I read a great book by Jared Diamond, who spent decades with the Highlanders in New Guinea. This is where I get a lot of my information from, and of course, not only just that book, but everything I read, I always look up and stuff like that too. And it's such an interesting book. You know, the first pictures in the 1930s of these people in New Guinea that were never contacted by white people at all, and white people that had no idea they existed until they flew over and saw these huts. The first time they contacted each other took pictures. I entered Western society to work regular jobs in New Guinea and not be part of the hunter-gatherer society. Within a couple of generations, yeah, they have clothes, they have jobs, they've entered an economy, and they learn how to read and write. But now they're suffering from other things that their tribal brothers and sisters don't suffer from, like obesity, diabetes. So, and the human body is actually...
Wouldn't obesity be the sign that society has gotten so high that it's actually destroying itself in the cyclical nature?
Great. It's awesome that you said that, because that was just my next point, dude. That was just my next point. We're at the point now, we're looking at the human body. We're looking at the physiology of the human body, our biology, right? And since humans, I know you don't believe in evolution, but since humans have been humans...
Wait, whoa, what?
Well,
I assume you didn't believe in evolution.
I assume because you're religious, so I just assume. But if you do, then that's even
religious better. Has nothing to do with evolution.
Okay, great. So let's go from there. Since Homo sapien has evolved and become the dominant species on the planet from other Homo erectus and Neanderthalis and whatever. Since we have established ourselves as the only human species on the planet, right? For a majority of our time on Earth, we live like the people are living in traditional societies. I'm talking about tens of thousands of years, 50,000 years. We've been living a certain way. It's only been a really tiny fraction of our history that we've actually had civilization and agriculture and technology and stuff like that. And in only a short amount of time, we have diseases that we never dealt with in tens of thousands of years in our existence, like hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, cancer rates. And it's time to, and people today, they're looking at our physiology and our biology, and they're asking questions like, have humans evolved to handle civilization? Like, are our bodies evolved to handle surplus? Like, we go to the supermarket. I'll go to the supermarket right now, and I can get anything I want in there. I have food on demand. But is that really good for it? Did human beings evolve to handle access to food on demand, to refined sugars and carbs, to eat a big steak,
right.
and to have video games and drive in a car to go from place to place. I'm in a car right now instead of walking, or even on horseback. Because, remember, civilization started with domestication of animals and agriculture. That's what helped civilization get jump-started.
What does this evolve? I'm just confused right now, because I hear what you're saying, but I don't really understand how exactly that translates to us having of our IQs being completely irrelevant to the situation. What's the difference?
Because what I'm saying is these people that you're saying that they have low IQs, they have been exist for the same way humans have been existing since we evolved. And
that's because they don't think bigger on average.
But since the more higher IQ, since we developed an IQ test and we've had civilization and Socrates and Plato, are we better off as a species? Because remember, that IQ doesn't do anything if we go
extinct. That's an important
that
philosophical question. One Aboriginals and Pygmies are not asking.
Because they don't have to, though. Why
No,
do
it's
they
not
have
because they
to?
don't have to. It's because they don't care. It's not. They're not. That's. It's not in. They don't comprehend those things. They don't care about those things as much.
But
On
why?
average. On average.
But Joe, why should they care if they've been living a certain way, isolated and secluded, and
Because their
happy for
average
thousands
life
of years?
expectancy is 16 to 24.
But they've been
It
surviving longer
sucks.
than we have.
I would
Listen,
rather
you're
live
Italian,
anywhere else in the world than in a pygmy tribe.
You're Italian. I'm half Italian, right? They have been around longer than Italians have been around, surviving. Evolution has favored them.
Surviving, though. We've been living for about 2,000 years.
Right. But they've been around since, but they have been inhabiting that area and living that way for tens of thousands of years. Is what I'm saying. Evolution has favored them. Low IQ and all. Life expectancy at all. As long as they reproduce before they die.
Evolution is favoring them because they've been around longer. If we're newer.
Evolution only favors.
These Italians are newer. Then what you're really saying is that white people are the evolution from them, meaning that we're the next. What are we? The next link in evolution or something?
I mean, hey, if you want to think that way, fine. But only
I don't want to think that way. I don't believe that. I'm just asking if that's what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is the way certain people live, they've been living that way for a long time. And evolution really doesn't care about your IQ. It only cares about.
I agree with that. I don't think evolution is what made us smarter than them.
I mean, who knows,
I think
bro?
It's the way we formed our culture 1,000 years ago that allowed us to raise our IQ genetically over a long period of time. The unification of Europe was the best thing for raising IQs ever because it stopped the inbreeding. It stopped the tribalism. People could go to all over the continent of Europe and get married and have kids with somebody with completely different genes than them.
Dude, in the first world, the autism rates have been skyrocketing year after year after year. Ask yourself, is autism an evolutionary trait? Are we evolving to be more autistic? Is this planet going to be run by people who are completely autistic? Is that our next evolutionary trait?
I mean, I think, yeah. I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I think we are run by autistic people right now. Look at the CEOs of all these giant tech companies. These are all high-functioning autistic people with incredibly low verbal IQs and incredibly high nonverbal IQs.
Right. Here's the answer to that question. If they reproduce more than we reproduce, and survive, then they will evolve and they will take over the planet. That's the only thing that evolution gives a shit about.
That's why I'm not talking. That's why I'm not connecting IQ to evolution. Because as far as evolution goes, if the smarter people think, oh, I should only have one kid, then they're going to go extinct. That's why I would advocate that the smart people should probably have more kids. And it doesn't matter who you are or what culture you come from or what color your skin is. It matters that you're going to pass on smarter genes to your progenies.
Right, but that's the thing. People that are smarter tend to have less kids.
I know.
Because
they know.
Because we live in civilization, and in civilization, you're too smart for your own good.
And any smart person would be opposed to that. Now, what I'm saying, though, is that the smartest people don't have very little kids. The smartest of the smart people.
No, the smarter you are, the more educated you are, the less kids you have, because
that's a general trend. The general trend among the smartest people, geniuses want to have big families because they recognize that that's the key to living a happy life.
I don't know, man. You go to areas that are low income, and there are people with even single parents.
I'm not saying that they don't. You're right. Poor people have more kids. That's fine. Low IQ people have more kids. You know why? Because they don't have the self-control to control their sexual urges because, honestly, they don't care.
But, remember, evolution doesn't care about that. They will survive long after you and anybody else.
That doesn't make them smarter. That doesn't make them smarter.
What does it matter, Joe? What does it matter if somebody's smarter if they're surviving longer than you?
If they are smarter, then we're done. We go away.
You really
want us to go away, and you really want the rest of the world to go back to living the same way the pygmies and Ethiopians and Somalians currently live right now?
How about this? If you ever seen the movie Idiocracy, that's what the future looks like. You will have civilization completely destroyed, and you will have people with average to below average IQs still surviving, taking the planet over.
But do you want that? Do you really want that?
I don't care. We're not gonna be around long enough to care.
Okay, fine. Do you want your great grandchildren? Do you care about them?
I mean, I do care about them. I do care about the species.
Do you want them, to live in a world run by people with a sub 80 IQ?
No, you don't want people. You want people to be able to be in a position.
I don't want my great grandchildren to have a life expectancy of 16 to 24.
Hey man, like I said, this is the price you pay for living in society. Just like they have prices.
I'm happy I live in society. That's why I'll preserve it, right? That's why I'm a nationalist. That's why I want to preserve Western culture, because it's a very high-minded culture in general, and it was because of the greatest Westerners were some of the smartest people to ever live.
Yeah, but Joe, here's
smarter
what we
than me,
get.
by the way, much smarter than me.
Joe, here's the thing, and this is coming from someone that absolutely loves civilization. Matter of fact, when we're done with this, you know what I'm going to do all day? I'm going to chill in my air-conditioned apartment and play Xbox all day because I'm off and I have a good job and I get paid. I love civilization. I do not want to go live in a hunter-gatherer tribe. I don't.
Right.
But I will say this though: with civilization comes wealth, but also with civilization comes poverty, destitution, depression. There is no poverty in these hunter-gatherer societies. You might hear me say, "Wait a second, these people got nothing. They're hunting with spears." Well, they don't have an economy. They're a hunter-gatherer trade barter society. But there's no rich and poor there. Their societies are small enough to where there's no need for money. Everybody goes out and hunt except for pregnant women, small children, and the elderly. Even women that are childbearing age that aren't pregnant, they go out and hunt also.
Childbearing age? You mean like 12?
Whatever it is. I mean, evolutionarily speaking, yeah.
Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that?
With what?
With women at the sexual maturity of 12 being raped by their husband.
I'm not talking about being raped. I said they go out and they hunt for food.
Yeah, I know. But you were talking about women of sexual maturity and men of sexual maturity. Sexual maturity in those tribes is incredibly young.
Yeah, but we just went over that their life expectancy
to knock up a 12-year-old girl.
Years old. Joe, their life expectancy is 25. So when you're 12, you're like you're 25 years old in a swimsuit. I mean, it's disgusting for us to think about, but you have to look at it in these contexts, Joe. Listen to me. If your life expectancy is 24 years old, you better start having kids at 13, 14.
I understand what you're saying, but that just builds on the point of how screwed up that life is.
It's screwed up to us, but it works for them is what I'm trying to say. It's worked for them for so long.
Because they literally can't do anything else.
Well, like I said though, they're surviving for thousands of years. So who are we to say what's the right way and what's the wrong way? We only live the way we live. I am blessed to be born in the greatest country. I am blessed.
Where I live 80 years instead of living 24 years, and where I don't rape children, so I can continue my line.
Joe, we are blessed to be born in the greatest country on earth. I'm actually blessed to be born in the greatest city.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I don't know about greatest city.
But at the same time, being born in this country has given me a totally different outlook on how we raise children, how we treat our women,
I'm not
what
saying
our diet is.
Yeah,
it's totally different for people in those other societies. It's not that there's no such. I don't see it as right or wrong. Men having sex with women when they're 13, 14 years old. When they start having periods, technically from a biological standpoint, you're ready to bear children. If your life expectancy is in the 25, 30,
you're not
40,
ready, you're able to.
Yeah, you're able to. But in those societies, though, like I said, you're trying to compare them to and superimpose our standards onto them. Like a 14-year-old girl.
Yes, because the practice is barbaric.
A 14-year-old girl in the United States is not ready to have a kid. Why? Because she's still got to go to high school. She doesn't have the government's going to be taking care of her.
Not because of that. It's because she's not even mentally matured yet from a biological standpoint.
But when you have a society where
not mentally capable, the prime childbearing years, according to every health professional, is from 20 to 30.
In the West.
No, not in the West. Everywhere. Peak sexual maturity for women, 20 to 30.
That's not true for everyone. You just said the pygmy life expectancy is 24 years old tops. So obviously you're not going to have kids.
Sexual maturity at 20 years old. They just die young.
Right. So they have to have children faster.
It's not that they biologically die sooner. It's that their lifestyle sucks, and that's why they die young.
But here's the thing: they said, like we just agreed, they've been surviving for thousands of years, but they die young. So something's working for them.
If you mean by surviving, I'm going to go and hunt until I'm 24 years old. Then right before I die, because it's usually an older man that has most of the kids in these tribes. When I'm about 20 years old, I'm going to go out. I'm going to rape a 12-year-old, whether she wants me to or not, so I can have a kid and continue the line. And we're going to keep doing that for thousands and thousands of years. That just tells me that they're eternally screwed up. It doesn't tell me that they're eternally going to live on forever. That's ridiculous. Why would you want that?
I would go as far as to say, yeah, it's a screwed up way to live, because me being born here, I would never want to live that way. I don't want to rape.
No one would want to live that way.
I don't want to have a kid, and I certainly don't want to die.
They would, to be perfectly honest with you. If we give all of them a free ticket to America, put them in some sort of factory job where they're making $15 an hour, or maybe let's make them all garden or something like that. We'll do something like that, and then we'll send them out. And that's really, you really think they're not all going to take that, an air-conditioned house with grocery stores, food?
No, because then there would be none of them left.
Why do you think? I don't think they'd care. I think they'd want to not die. And what do you mean there'd be none of them left? That'd be a good thing for them. If they were to mix with other groups of people, that would raise their collective IQ.
But they don't. Again, Joe, you're putting.
But they don't think in those terms because, like you said, they have an IQ of like 65.
It's not. They don't think in those terms, not because they have an IQ. They don't think in those terms because they don't have to. Because this is the way
why does everyone with an IQ of like 65 think in those terms?
Well, you have people that have Down syndrome that have a 65 IQ that live in the United States, and they're not going. They didn't all of a sudden turn to hunter-gatherers. I don't see a bunch of people with Down syndrome.
They would if you put them out with no help from their parents.
They die. They can't survive.
They wouldn't die. Why do you think they die?
You take a grown man with Down syndrome and you let him roam the fucking woods by himself.
Not gonna die.
Or how long do you think it would take for a fucking band of about 15 to 20 people with Down syndrome to survive in the woods alone before they fucking die? Probably 2 weeks, right?
No,
and people with Down syndrome have
I don't think that. I think that their instincts would kick in and they'd survive.
You think they have instincts?
Why wouldn't they survive?
I don't know, man.
Oh, hold on. Okay, we'll get him back in a sec. He's just in for a sec.
Signs point to them not be. They have to have constant long-term care from other adults.
No, they don't.
Until they die.
I mean, in super severe cases, they do when they can't eat or they can't walk or they can't do something like that. But if they can walk, eat, and communicate, at least to some extent, and I don't really know anybody with Down syndrome so severe that they can't do that unless there's another disease paired with it. Down syndrome alone, they can still communicate, they can still hunt, they can still do things, and in many cases, they're a lot stronger.
You're talking about entire societies that have the IQ.
An entire society of people with Down syndrome would definitely be able to survive under a hunter-gatherer system.
Here's the thing. You're talking about societies that you say have the collective IQ of some of the smarter people with Down syndrome or chromosome disorders, and yet they can survive and do things that people with Down syndrome can't do without supervision. You will not take a group of people with Down syndrome and put them in Africa, and for any extended period of time, they will adapt to the environment and survive the way these people do all the time.
If they were raised and born, by the way, and born into that situation and were raised properly and didn't have any motor how do I put it? Have any motor skills disabled by their Down syndrome, they'd be fine.
Yeah, but here's the macabre thing about that. Infanticide is big in those societies, and they will probably
I know if you had Down syndrome, they just murder you because we don't have high-minded thought there, where it's like, I wonder if all life is intrinsically valuable.
It's not to them. To them, it's not because
of course it isn't. You know why? Because all they think about is survival. They think of nothing else because they have a low IQ.
Well, no, that's not because they have a low IQ. We think about survival, but we have an abundance of resources, so we can afford to take care of.
Why did we get an abundance of resources?
Through agriculture.
Why did we get agriculture?
Food production is the biggest part of the human species as far as
but why did we develop it?
Civilization.
But why did we develop it?
I mean, human beings evolved in the right environment to develop it. That's just what happened.
Well, apparently it was only some human beings.
It's taken thousands of years to actually develop. You know how long it took to domesticate the first animal or to domesticate the first plant to the point where an almond would kill you with cyanide poison?
Huh? Took hundreds of years.
It took probably even longer than that. It took
no, it didn't. It took hundreds of years. That's about how long it takes. I mean, look, we're still creating new dog breeds today.
Right, but I'm talking about domesticating a wild horse to the point where you can't just take a wild horse.
Yeah, that might take. I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Sure. You have to breed domesticable horses, domesticable sheep from wild goats that are ornery, that are not conducive to work or to be, slaughtered as livestock. I mean, sheep are docile. You can lead them right into a slaughterhouse, but they have been selectively bred to be that way for us.
Here's the thing, though. When they've taken people from these low IQ areas and put them in affluent European families, they still performed lower than a white child in the same affluent environment. And by lower, I mean closer to their average than their white counterpart, who performed closer to the average of Europeans.
I don't know if that's true or not, dude. I'd have to actually.
I mean, you can look it up. It was a study done in 1975.
I'd have to.
I'm not joking about it. Look, like I said, I don't want that to be true.
To be quite honest,
I tragically am suspicious that study is true. I don't want that to be the case. I don't like that's true. I want everybody
to be quite honest
and capable of equal intelligence, so anybody can pull themselves up and form a civilization, including Ethiopians and Somalians, who have the lowest IQ. Oh, I'm sorry, Papua New Guinea is the lowest IQ in the world. I think it's like 61.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that I don't want that to be true. I want. So I swear to God, I want everything else, anything else except that to be true. But it seems like it is.
You know what happened? But here's the thing, Joe. Here's the funny thing about it, Joe. Do you know what happens if all of a sudden people in Papua New Guinea all of a sudden have IQs of like 100, 110 at the end of civilization? You know what's going to happen to those people? They're going to overpopulate the small area of land that they have. And you'll just have famine and poverty.
Children and from that tribe because there's not enough people in it.
Listen, we keep going back to the same thing. Again, they've been living that way for such a long time. There's nothing.
And they've been getting dumber for such a long time.
But it doesn't. But they'll probably, unless we destroy them, right? Unless we have some sort of interference where, like when the Europeans came to the New World and populations were decimated by disease that they weren't evolved to handle. Unless something like that happens, those people, if you leave them alone, they will survive long after we nuke ourselves, long after Russia, China, France, United States, Israel, India, Pakistan, long after we launch all our nukes and fuck us all up. Those people will still be there in the highlands and in the fucking rivers and in the mountains, surviving the way they've been surviving the whole fucking time. The nuclear fallout probably wouldn't even reach them. So, I mean, why should they change? There's no incentive for them to change. Matter of fact, like I told you, people have left the tribe and entered society in the capital in Port Moresby, and you can fly into the airport and you can see black and brown, indigenous people in New Guinea that work there. They read, they write, they go to school, they make money, they own businesses. They left the tribe, and generations removed.
And those people are probably the ones with a higher IQ.
And they're also the ones who have diabetes and they're obese. So, I mean, it's a trade-off, man. Like, you have to learn. Listen,
it's not a trade-off, dude. They live to be,
the problem.
I'm going to live to be 80 years old, have an Xbox, have a television, have air conditioning, have food every day. I mean, come on, man. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to die of Ebola. Thethere's that too. That's pretty good. What's not, like you said, what outside? Oh, my great grandkids, are going to get the chance to rape a 12-year-old girl and continue my life.
Joe, I got a challenge for you. I got a nice little thing that you can do, a little study for yourself that you can actually do. Like, this is something like not reading a report or an article you read online or, listening to a Ben Shapiro podcast or whatever. I got something that you can actually tangibly get your own hands on it and see for yourself. We live in the United States. And Pennsylvania is the closest one to me, living in New York. Go to an Amish or a Mennonite community and spend some time there and see how people in a society like that live and see if it's an IQ issue. Give them ask them if they'll take an IQ test. Ask them why they don't go and leave and for air conditioning, and just see what the fucking type of responses you get. Live with them, because the anthropologists that I'm parroting, or the anthropologists that I get
isn't the same. Their reason isn't the same. The Amish people. The Amish people believe that there's a spiritual obligation, and that's a very high-minded thing, by the way. I think that the Amish people are pretty high IQ group of people. Now, the reason I say that is because they believe they believe that transcendent of all material pleasure, I will enjoy a happy afterlife due to my diligence to this traditional lifestyle. That's not what people in Papua New Guinea think.
How the fuck do you know what they believe in Papua New Guinea? Do you know anything about the people there or their religion or their beliefs?
Well, tell me then. Do you?
Joe, how can you
I know they don't believe that. I know they don't believe that. You know why? You know why? Because there's mass immigration of Somalians and Ethiopians and people from those countries flowing into Europe right now the second the floodgates open. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you have people immigrating from Somalia to the United States.
Millions of people immigrating. Millions of people. Because the opportunity to live in the world that me and you live in came about, a bunch of them had to run.
Right.
And the ones that stayed are even stupider.
But I don't see anybody from New Guinea immigrating here. I don't see any Indians from Peru immigrating here. I don't see any Inuit immigrating here. I don't see anybody from the Aboriginal Australia immigrating here. I don't see that. And you're saying that they don't do because of such and such, but you have no fucking clue what their beliefs are. I really don't know much about.
I'm just telling you. I'm telling you that what you're saying isn't the case. If they had the opportunity, if they felt that they had the ability to do so, they would.
Joe, here's the difference between me and you. Ready? I don't know what their beliefs are. I'm not going to go and assume that, this is what they believe. I don't fucking know. I've never been there, never will be in any of these places. This is so fun. You know how much it costs to fly to Papua New Guinea? It's a fucking day-and-a-half flight. Thousands of dollars. I'm never going to go there to see these people. Day-and-a-half flight. Thousands of dollars. I'm never going to go there to see these people, and they're never going to come here. So I don't know. All I can do is I can go by what I know about them, and I know that they've been living this way for thousands of years. They were first contacted in 1933, and they've been fine for tens of thousands of years. And they will continue to be fine if they're left alone. That's all I know. I don't know about their religious beliefs. I don't know why some of them go and they join society where, Australian whites.
But you do, because you have a brain with logical deductive skills. Why do you leave the place with a life expectancy of 16 to 24 years old? Why do you live? Why would you leave that? Because you want to freaking live longer.
Yeah, but you don't want to live there anymore. The same reason why
you want to live. Period. That's why you leave.
I guess. Hey, listen. I guess, man. I guess you're.
I'm not assuming these things. I'm deducing them logically.
Right. You could be right, but then again, if that was the case, we would have no more pygmy tribes at all because they all want to leave and live longer. But we do.
Like I said, it's not that they don't know. They're not, and if they do know, they don't understand.
Oh, they do know.
That's the point.
Do know because, like I said, they've encountered whites before. They've encountered Europeans before. They've lived with anthropologists and historians that go and study them and live among them and watch them raise their children. And there's documentaries of. I mean, we see. Have you ever seen what a pygmy looks like? Have you ever seen one on video?
Yes.
So obviously they've encountered technology because they have to see the camera that's filming them. So they know. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to blame them for living the way they live?
No, I'm not. That's okay. That's where I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm not blaming them for this. I don't really care, to be honest. What I'm saying is.
So then why is IQ important to you? Why is the whole IQ thing important to you then?
To explain why certain areas, I already told you this, certain areas have not developed civilization over thousands of years.
But why is it important that they also develop
Maybe it isn't important. Maybe it is. All I did was post a fact.
More civilization?
Hold on. All I did was post a fact. I provided no opinion on the issue at all whatsoever.
But
so how's that fact racist? The fact that the IQ, the average IQ of mild mental retardation,
that fact IQ.
Ethiopia have an average IQ of 68 and 62.
No, their IQ score, the raw data in a vacuum, is not itself racist. It is what it's been used for in the historical context. It is what we then do with that data.
Was that. All I posted was the fact.
It is the beliefs that we conjure up based on that data that becomes racist. It doesn't matter whether if we gave a bunch of people IQ scores and China scored an average of 120 and New Guinea scored an average of 60, and you said, oh, this is interesting, and just left it the fuck alone, and there's no racism. Who gives a fuck? But then what we've seen throughout history is we've seen, based on those IQ scores, you've had policies of forced sterilization, conquering.
I don't want any of that, though. I don't want any of that. So I don't understand what your issue is.
No. What I'm saying is you may not want any of that, but historically, that's what that's.
So I should hide. Hold on. So I should hide the truth. I should hide the truth because the truth is racist.
No, I don't think you should hide the truth. I'm saying it's been used that way. This is old stuff.
But how does that make me a racist?
Not only is it old stuff, but the fact that
this stuff isn't old. The study I cited was from 2005.
Right, but this isn't. But these are just old studies resurfacing. This is old pseudoscience resurfacing to suggest that because people have low IQ. It's not pseudoscience.
It's IQ. IQ is well accepted in the scientific community. It's criticized, but it's well accepted as a measurement of intelligence.
Right, but the application for IQ, what an IQ translates into, is considered pseudoscience. Like, for example, like what I was saying.
I'm making the claim, and I didn't in the fact that I posted, by the way, but I've been in at least this saying that it seems to be a good measurement of how well groups of people can develop complex civilization with complex philosophical underpinnings. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, that's my argument. That's my opinion. The fact was, most people in Somalia and Ethiopia suffer from mild mental retardation because their IQ is below 70. It is true. It's a fact.
You can't. So what you're trying to say? You know?
I'm not saying Down syndrome. I'm not saying they have an extra chromosome. I'm saying they suffer from mild mental retardation, meaning their mind is lower than most.
We have a chromosomal issue. You don't have a normal cognitive capacity.
I'm not talking about Down syndrome. I said mild mental retardation. Mental retardation just means mental slowing.
But this is why people don't put much stock into IQs. If you're going to say that people in Somalia suffer from mild mental retardation, you go to Somalia.
We literally have jurisprudence in the Supreme Court that says flat out, by the way, that you can't execute somebody with an IQ below, I believe, 60.
In our society.
Because it's illegal to execute the retarded.
In our society, the way we judge people and the way we judge their capacity to understand, you can't do that with someone with an IQ under 60. You just said the average IQ in Papua New Guinea was 61. Are you trying to tell me that nobody can be executed for a crime that they commit against somebody else in New Guinea because they're all too stupid to understand what they're doing? So if you go to New Guinea and your wife gets murdered,
no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that's the jurisprudence that's on the books in the United States, and the case was decided in like 2005. It was a huge thing. It was when Bush was president.
But the things like jurisprudence, I don't give a shit about that. That's all stuff that we as people just made up in our minds.
Okay, well, you have to convince the court that the scientific data is correct. And in that specific case, in giving somebody the death penalty with the defense of, oh no, I didn't mean it, I'm retarded.
Listen, if you're living in the United States, if you're living in the first world in civilization, and you have an IQ of around 60 or something like that, we've decided as a society that based on the context of the way we live, you don't have enough mental capacity to understand the difference in right and wrong. Right? That's pretty much the justification for it. You have an entire society of people with an IQ of 60. That doesn't fucking translate to people in New Guinea.
Does that mean you disagree with the judgment?
No. It's not that I disagree with the judgment. I just don't see why it's important at all. I don't take much stock in it.
It's important because it makes people like you flip out and call me racist for simply posting a fact.
First of all,
flip out and call me racist for simply posting a fact.
First of all, I flipped out. First of all, I called you racist. I know pissing people off. You already know. You already know. I'm
No, it doesn't make me angry. I'm just letting you know because that's why I posted it. So someone like you would come on and call me racist for posting nothing but a fact.
Hey, check it out. I called you racist for it, and now I'm on your show, and we're bullshitting, right? We're having a conversation. We never would do this.
I don't hate you. I'm not even mad at you. I'm just letting you know.
So that's what I'm saying. But
I was never mad at you for it.
But in the context of history, it's been that in the
context of history, it has been used for racism. I agree with you on that. But that doesn't mean that just because I say the fact that exists that I'm racist too, or that I'm pushing some sort of eugenics agenda. I disagree with eugenics. I'm Catholic, dude.
I don't think you're pushing a eugenics agenda. I've used hyperbole when he said that, but at least you know. At least I'll give you credit that you understand that this type of stuff was used in the past by. I mean, this was used by Marvin Sanger and all these other fucking freaks, and Hitler also, who was. And look at. Here's the thing: you may see that this stuff is like, oh, this is just harmless facts, but those harmless facts fucking evolved or devolved or blew up into fucking Mein Kampf and selective breeding and sterile.
I can't help the fact that people are going to do terrible things with facts, and I'm not going to hide the truth. Because other people are idiots. That's wrong.
You don't have to hide the truth. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to hide the truth. I think that what would save us from going down that path to another fucking, 150 years from now, having another Hitler who wants to create a master race based on the fucking IQs and genetics and all that. The thing that will save us from going down that path again is finally realizing that it doesn't fucking matter what these IQ scores are because they're not indicative of really anything important.
But they are indicative of one important thing, that a society of people with a low IQ will not form a society with complex philosophical underpinnings.
Okay, but again, why is that important? Why?
It's important because you don't want to bring a mass amount of that group of people into your country.
So let me ask yourself this. Let's have this discussion now, because now I understand what you're saying about the IQ, and it's not that we don't agree. I understand your point of view. You're saying that people that don't have the high IQ, they'll never have societies like we have. They'll never progress. They'll never join us in the first world, and the Earth will always be. You'll always have people that are backwards and blah blah blah. Okay, I get it. Now let's ask ourselves, let's have a philosophical question, because we come from a society, we have IQs, and we're capable of philosophy. Let's have the philosophical question, or the philosophical discussion. What is so great about civilization and society?
Well, I mean, hold on. Actually, I want to get to that, but I actually want to talk about what we were supposed to talk about. And I wanted to get to the point of which we basically spent some time talking about why I'm not a racist. Whatever, fine. And honestly, I don't really think I had to do much to prove that. Whatever. But now I want to get into why you think Trump is a racist.
I'll say this. If Trump is not a racist, if he's not, I'm not saying he is. I'm saying if Trump is, that's for you to decide. If Trump is not racist, then it's if-then logic, basically. If Trump is not racist, then he's definitely using racism, xenophobia, bigotry as a sort of policy, especially during his campaign, to get votes and support. And I will say that.
Xenophobia. He is xenophobe, and so am I.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, you know how much I appreciate you saying that? Because there's so many fucking Trump supporters and people on the right that will just deny it to no end. And it's just so fucking
But I'm not racist. And neither is he.
It's so refreshing to hear somebody say, yeah, I'm a xenophobe, or I'm a bigot or something. Or maybe you don't see yourself as a bigot, but it's a xenophobe, meaning you fear, people from other cultures. And it's good to say that, because we can just skip a whole bunch of nonsense and just go straight into that about xenophobia and stuff like that. And at least now you acknowledge that Trump has kind of used that as a policy platform.
He's not only used it, he is one, and so am I. There's nothing wrong with being a xenophobe.
But why do you say that?
Why do I say there's nothing wrong with being a xenophobe? Because if you fear people from other cultures, your culture's protected.
Is it really?
Yes.
Let's try to think about that in a historical context. People that fear other people are generally protected by.
Not fear other people. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about cultures that fear other cultures encroaching on their values.
Has that ever stopped Has it ever stopped imperialists from conquering other lands?
No, because they were trying to spread their culture so it didn't die. It's like procreating. You want to spread your seed and in that context, the seed was a culture. And by the way, there was a lot of wrong practices in doing that whole thing. And I personally don't agree with it. I actually believe in the rule of sovereignty as being almost above all else. I would say like genocide and obviously some certain other exceptions.
What would make two opposing people of different cultures, or maybe one over another, attack another? Like, for example, why is it that Europeans came over to the New World and conquered Mexico and the Indians here, and it wasn't other ways out? Montezuma didn't get on a ship.
Well, because when the Spanish showed up and experienced the culture, they were so horrified by what they saw that they ran out of the city, guns a-blazing, trying not to die, because the king, Moctezuma II, offered up the prettiest virgin in the town, brought her to the top of the pyramid in front of these Spaniards, cut her live beating heart out, cut off her head, and kicked it down the steps. That's why they came and conquered.
That's not why they came. They didn't know that. They didn't know anybody.
They did know that. That's literally what Cortez did when he first went there. He was the first one to discover the Mayan societies. He went in and was horrified at what he saw.
So wait a minute. So the Spanish fearing the Aztecs didn't really help each side from not getting conquered, one or the other.
Yes, it did. It got the Mayans conquered because it scared them, and they were seeing something that would transcend their right to sovereignty, being the fact that they're committing mass genocide, and then they came and took them over. That's what happened.
But you just said if two cultures fear one another, it'll keep the peace. It'll keep one from encroaching on the other.
I said it would keep your culture from dying.
Oh, so what you're saying is if we fear another culture, we should attack them before they attack us out of fear to keep our culture.
No. I'm not saying attack anybody unless they're committing something atrocious, obviously.
But wait a minute, if they're committing something atrocious on another side of the fucking world, separated by an ocean, how is it a threat to you?
To you or not? They're literally ending hundreds of thousands of lives a day. I mean, I'm sorry. So we crossed the pond to stop Nazi Germany too. That was the greatest promotion of Western culture in history because it was Western culture saying, no, we're not going to let this Nazi cultural reform take over.
They were mass murdering hundreds of thousands of lives. Meanwhile, these as vast as these civilizations were, their big cities didn't have more than hundreds of thousands of people anyway. But they're massacring.
Atlanta had like 3 million people living in it. It was huge.
Right. In that huge capital. But like I said, 3 million.
That's where it happened.
If you're massacring hundreds of thousands of people, that 3 million turns into what? 2.5 million? You're starting to decimate the population if you're slaughtering hundreds of thousands.
They weren't decimating their population. They were kidnapping other tribes. And that's weren't decimating their population. They were kidnapping other tribes. And that's why when Cortez came back with his armies, the Native Americans literally ran to join him to destroy these people because they were so heinous and sick.
Yeah, but how many people did the Spanish end up killing there?
I get that. I get that, and that's why I'm saying that it wasn't handled properly.
Really didn't, right? But the fear on either side.
But
really
I don't care what the Spanish less bad than bringing them to the top of a pyramid, cutting out their live beating heart, cutting off their head, and kicking it down steps, and doing that to the tune of 40 to 50 every week.
I don't understand how you can say that when the entire fucking civilizations were decimated by disease.
They should have been. They were awful. They were horrible. They were so morally inept societies. They needed to be destroyed.
Well, so what are
you trying to say? What are you trying to say, Danny? That we should have just they're just killing.
I'm trying to get down to the bottom of it. So
just let them do that. It's none of our business.
Well, hold up. You're saying thousands of innocent people.
By the way, we should allow millions of Nazi immigrants to come in that hate Jews. Maybe we'll move them into communities so they learn some sympathy.
First of all, it's not at all the thing that you're saying right now. That's definitely a horrible comparison. But what you're saying is
not a horrible comparison. It's a civilization was committing genocide.
But we're not talking about them. I asked the question before. Why is it that Montezuma never got on a ship and came to Europe, but Europeans came here? See, they were killing
there
their
were
own
many
people.
that came to Europe.
They were killing their own people.
They were brought there. They were told to come and experience
their own
it.
people or killing people from other
You don't think
tribes.
there were rambunctious Native Americans that wanted to see Europe?
I don't know. They didn't sail there. They didn't develop the technology to sail there.
They could have went with the Spanish. That was really their only option.
Well, listen, they had boats for fishing, but then why didn't they ever have the idea?
I mean clipper ships. I mean ships. You're right. They didn't have.
But here's the thing: why was it never a motivation to develop big ships for long-term sail for these people? Why?
Because they didn't have the IQ to come up with it at the time. I don't know. They didn't develop it.
They didn't have the IQ to build a bigger boat, but they had the IQ to develop a sophisticated calendar, irrigation, sewage. Cities
apparently so. Apparently so. I don't know why they didn't develop ships. Maybe they just didn't have the high-minded aspiration to go and explore.
You know what it was with people in that part of the world why they didn't develop stuff like that? Because in Europe, if you take a look at the topography of Europe, it's a lot of rivers, and people are separated by rivers and channels and mountains, and there's always something. And Europe, it's weird. Europe, for as homogenous as it may seem, as far as like race and skin complexion, it is a very fractured continent as far as cultures are concerned. Germans, Austrians, Italians, Spanish, English. Even in the United Kingdom, we have English, Welsh, Irish.
I agree with you.
And they all have different languages.
Largely happened after the Reformation.
But what I'm saying
is, also the Black Plague. Europe definitely fractured itself again, and it's still living in that fractured state.
Well, no, it's
but
not
under
the Roman
Empire, under Christendom, it wasn't quite like that.
But you still had different languages.
And for that reason, Western culture was stronger than it ever was.
You still had an Italian culture with Italian history, Italian language, Italian food. Polish language, Polish history, Polish
That's
food.
not what a culture is. A culture is a philosophical underpinning that you universally accept with a people group. That's an ethnicity that you're talking about. An ethnicity isn't an exclusive culture. There can be ethnicities. There can be ethnicities as part of a greater culture. Different ethnicities part of a greater culture, and that culture at the time was Christendom, at least in the medieval era.
I think if you went to Italy right now, or Poland, or France, and you told them, listen, you guys have the same culture as the Italians, you're all the same, I don't think they'd agree.
I didn't say you have the same culture. I say your society, your civilization has the same philosophical underpinnings.
Yeah, in some ways, but remember, Italy and both Germany were both fascist at a time when fascism.
Yeah, but that was a revolution against the norms of the philosophical underpinnings of the time.
Yeah, so obviously
the major change in the philosophical underpinnings of the West came with the Enlightenment, with John Locke, Adam Smith, all these other giant thinkers at the time.
Right. So before we get to that, but going back to what I just said, even though you have a homogenous as far as ethnicity and race and skin complexion and stuff like that in Europe, and Europe is the smallest continent, you still had fascism grow out of Europe. Communism is a European creation. It's a Western civilization creation. Karl Marx was German. So, I mean, you have fascism that came from Europe. Europeans have given us communism. All the things that you say are incompatible with the West came from the West, came from these cultures, came from Europe. And not every European country would adopt it. There was never a time when
if they were more xenophobic, that wouldn't have happened.
Well, that goes back to my point that even though Europe, as homogenous as it may seem on the surface,
but that's what's happening right now. You're seeing the European Union, the European coalition breaking up right now because these people are seeing an extra governmental body telling their countries what they can and can't do. And that includes bringing in thousands of Muslims from the third world that commit disproportionate acts of terror in their nations.
Even regardless of the Muslims and all that other stuff, you see a push in Europe for individual state sovereignty. But a lot of people don't want the European Union anymore. They want their own culture, their own currency. No, I don't know if it's xenophobia or the fact that people just
not of other Europeans because they have similar philosophical underpinnings to their civilization, and people can assimilate well. But what they do have, Danny, is they do have a xenophobia of Muslims from across the pond coming in, and that's why they want to leave the European Union. I've talked to countless people from Europe, and every single one of them says it's about immigration, that people want to leave the EU.
That's fine. That's fine. But you're talking about all this xenophobia among Europeans. But what just fucking happened? Like a month ago, we had the World Cup where everybody gathered in Russia from all different countries. All they're fucking cheering their people.
Oh, yeah,
on,
I'm fine with that.
Nobody was phobic of anybody. What I'm saying is there's a push for the European Union to be dissolved because Italians want to be Italian.
You a question: if there's a terror attack at the World Cup, if something blows up and kills a bunch of people from all over the world, from all different ethnicities, what ethnicity do you think that person's going to be? Most likely.
I don't know. Would it make you feel better if I said they were going to be Arab Muslim? Would it make you feel better?
I'm just saying most likely. I mean, it might not. It could be anybody. Okay, but what's it most likely going to be?
What
culture is the most? What culture is inclined to go and do that more than any other at this moment?
For the sake
of the one that contains a disproportionate amount of jihadists that think suicide bombings are sometimes and often justified.
Okay, so now what?
So there should be a xenophobia of those people. I mean, come on.
So wait a minute. So you don't think xenophobia kind of fostered that type of environment for jihadis to?
Are you kidding me, dude? They would cut your hand off for stealing in the ancient Arab world at their height. At their height.
Yeah, I don't think you really want to study what people in Europe would do.
Not only that. During the Arab medieval area, you can marry 12-year-old girls. You could rape them. Have you read Sharia law? Sharia law has been the accepted legal system of Islam since its conception.
Listen, you have to debate somebody that's Muslim for this, because I'm an atheist, bro. So I really don't.
I get you. I know. I already know you're not crazy about Islam, and you have because you understand it. I get that.
Well, no, it's not. No, I'm not crazy about religion in general. Doesn't matter.
I know you're not crazy about religion in general, but Islam is a religion, and you're not crazy about it.
Yeah, but I have friends that are Muslim. I just won't convert to Islam. I'm not going to convert, just like I won't convert to Christianity.
Why are you virtue signaling for Muslims right now, dude? It's okay to say you don't like Islam and think it's a false doctrine that's going to lead to many societal problems. Why can't you say that?
I mean, it's not that I'm virtue signaling.
You're virtue signaling because you won't say it, but you have no problem saying it about Christians.
I just said religion in general. You just want me to say Islam because it makes you feel better. Like you want me to say
Islam because it's true.
Okay, I'll say this about Islam. I don't think the religion's legit.
Yeah,
I don't think the religion is legit.
Exactly. Now I'm guessing. By the way,
on about miracles and stuff like that, don't believe it.
Isn't legit to you either, because that's fair.
No, no, yeah. But I'm an atheist. I was raised Catholic, and I left.
Sure. You're Italian, of course. You're Catholic.
And I'm Puerto Rican, which both my.
Yeah, that's even worse. So, I'm Irish and Italian, so I mean, kind of the same deal.
Exactly. So. But like, that's why I don't get into the whole religious debates with people. I don't do that stuff anymore. It's just so long. It's so tiring. I mean, I don't feel like, the Sharia law. I don't know enough about Sharia law to even care.
But Sharia, think about it this way: Sharia isn't really about esoteric religiosity and transcendence and God or anything like that. Sharia law is a political system about how you're supposed to run your society. That law that they say comes from God.
Here's what I can tell you about Sharia law. Ready? I have a lot of Muslim friends, and I've never once had my head chopped off by any of them. So, I mean, and there's some of the nice people. That's what I know about Sharia law. So Sharia law has not prohibited me from having a positive relationship with people who are Muslims while they know that I'm atheist. Like, they know I'm atheist. I'm not like you. I am
just because Muslims don't follow Sharia law doesn't mean that that's a widely held philosophical belief in the Middle East that leads to terrorism. And not only that, when a lot of Muslims in the United States find themselves looking into their religion and trying to become more devoted, it sometimes leads them down a path to jihadism. I mean, you can't acknowledge that that's not true. That's happened multiple times.
Sure. I mean, I'm not really worried about it, man.
I'm worried about it. You know why? Because while I was living in New York, some guy decided to drive his van off the road for freaking Allah on my street and killed 3 people. If I was walking on the street that day, I'd be dead.
I mean, if we're talking about what's most likely to kill you, I'm more scared of a cop than I am.
It doesn't matter what's most likely to kill me. It could have happened to me. It's literally on my street in New York. It was on West Street, dude. You remember that?
And I lived in a city when
I walked on that street every day.
Okay, like I said, I'm not. It's not something that it's not on my radar. Islamic
Well,
extremism.
all I'm
and
asking you is
Islam,
what's wrong with me fearing the foreigner in that sense? I don't want to get run over by a van.
You want my personal opinion of what's wrong with fearing people in general, or do you want me to give you the
No, I'm not talking about fearing people in general because that's wrong. I'm asking you why I should fear. I should have why I shouldn't have a rational fear of Islam.
I don't know. I don't know if there is a rational fear of Islam. I wouldn't. Listen. I'm an atheist. I don't have a fear of Islam. You know what I'm saying? Like I live
on an island where there isn't any Muslims for the most part.
If you fear Islam, you got to figure that. I don't have the answer for you as to why you should or you shouldn't.
Oh, I know you don't have to answer for me. I'm asking. All I'm saying is that's my argument. That's why I'm xenophobic or whatever. I don't even care. Like I'm a xenophobe. Fine, call me that. I fear certain groups of foreigners coming into my country.
So all I can tell you is this: you have a right to associate or disassociate with whoever you can fear whoever the hell you want, as long as you don't.
I actually can't.
As long as you don't engage in actions that infringes on the life, liberty, and property of another human being, you can believe whatever you want.
That's not true.
If you're living in a neighborhood where Muslims start moving in, then move out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. You don't have a right to tell people that they can't move a certain place.
And then the headlines come where white people are racist because they move out of neighborhoods where people from cultures that have been known to be very violent and dangerous. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but
that's not racist. That's not racist. That's just deduction.
Well, here's the thing. I don't agree with that either. I don't think it's racist to necessarily move out of a neighborhood because black people are moving in and white people are getting scared. But is it racism? It could be. I don't know. I don't know. It
could be racism. There could be a racist living in a neighborhood that's like, oh, I don't like all these blacks coming in and I'm getting out. I get that. That's right. I get what you're saying.
And you know what?
I don't see that. When I see what happens, for example, this happened in Chicago. There's a town called Maywood. It used to be a bustling middle class town right next to one of the richest, most wonderful cities in Chicago, in the Chicago area, River Forest. And literally, there's just a bridge separating the two. As soon as a large African-American population moved in, mind you, this was after the Great Society, after black culture kind of de-evolved itself and became almost uninhabitable for other people groups. You don't have to believe that, but that's what I believe happened. Anyways, this was after the Great Society. All that stuff happened that I believe destroyed black culture, that it literally turned to crap. And all the white people moved out. You know why all the white people moved out? Because when the black people came in, they didn't take care of their property. They lowered their property values. There was a lot of crime. The neighborhood was no longer safe, so everybody left.
Right, and Joe, you have every right to leave if you don't like the way the neighborhood looks anymore. You have every right.
Yes, I can leave, but I can't leave without consequences.
Joe, believe it or not, you have a right to be racist in this country. You have a right as a human being.
But I'm not racist.
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you have a right. That if a black person moves in a neighborhood that you don't like black people so much that you want to sell your house.
But if I start a neighborhood, I have no right to tell. I have no right. If I start a neighborhood, if I go and join a neighborhood, they don't have a right to say, hey, black person, you can't come into the town. That's not a right that they have.
Right. You cannot tell that person. You cannot tell that person.
Not have a freedom of association. And I honestly, I argue you should. That way, when I'm living in my multiracial Western utopia, where everybody accepts the tenets of the West, the racists can all go move into White Town and leave me alone.
Right. But what I'm saying is this: you have every right to leave.
Just have their own towns.
I don't know.
That's my argument. I think that we should have that, and I think that.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Do you think a town full of racists would do well economically?
I don't care.
Well, but do you think they would?
It's possible. Depends.
On what?
It depends on how inclined they are to making money and starting businesses.
But why would
I don't think a bunch of white liberal socialists from California went and started a neighborhood where they said only whites are allowed. No, I think it would fail.
You do? Why is that?
because it's not a good economic model and it's going to collapse and people are going to be crippled by government programs, whatever it may be.
Well, I mean, California's got like one of the largest economies in the world thanks to
that's
Silicon
because of the
Valley,
Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and Sunbelt migration, not because
right, but those are all liberal. That's like the hotbed for liberal socialism, and it's one of the largest economies in the world. So we really
hold on. You're switching the argument. Let's go back to what we were talking about.
Right. I don't want to go off on a tangent. Yeah. I just wanted to point that thing out real quick. But like I was saying, you have a right to move out if you don't like the complexion of the neighborhood, the way it's turning.
But you don't have a right to say, you don't have a right to say, I want the neighborhood I'm moving to, I want it to stay this way. And by the way, this is actually a really big problem in African-American neighborhoods with gentrification. Their freedom of association is being violated by saying, no, I don't want all these lame white hipsters moving into my neighborhood.
Yeah, I get that. Don't have a right. Yeah, but they don't have a right to tell them that they can't move there, though.
They should.
They can always move out. You don't have a right to do that. I understand. Listen, I see gentrification every day, bro. I work in Brooklyn. I've seen what happened in neighborhoods in Bushwick and stuff like that. I've seen what I used to work in Harlem when I first started collecting garbage, and I've seen one half of Harlem is all hipster white, and neither one of us, if me and you decided to become roommates, we couldn't afford an apartment in some parts of Harlem.
I know. It sucks.
So. And what happens is the property values go up, and then the people can't afford to live there anymore. They get shipped off to like Newburgh or somewhere.
It's not just that though. They don't like the culture the hipsters are bringing. And honestly, I don't.
No, it's not.
Because I wouldn't like that either.
It's actually, Joe. It's actually the reverse. I saw somewhere where a couple of white hipsters were starting a petition in the neighborhood in Brooklyn to get the Puerto Ricans from playing their music loud in the street. And these are Puerto Ricans in Brooklyn that have lived there for generations, always playing their Spanish music in the street. And they're walking around saying, yeah, we're starting a petition to get them to lower the music. Those people were fucking booted out of the neighborhood. Like, you're going into a neighborhood that you're not from, and you're telling people that they can't play the music. Why didn't the Puerto Ricans do that? Like, listen, my dad is Puerto Rican, and he blasts his Spanish music.
Right. But that's my point, is that the hipsters are moving in, and the hipsters are moving in and trying to change the neighborhood culture, and the minorities in those areas don't like it.
Right. They don't.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's not right. They should be allowed to say hipsters get out.
No, well, you know what? They have a right.
And whites in the South who say, yeah, look, I don't want a bunch of black people from the ghetto moving into my neighborhood. They should be able to say, yeah, no, I don't want them here. They can't come.
No, but see, you can't stop somebody from moving into a neighborhood. Though.
Should be able to. You should be able to.
You should. Why? Because, like I said, you have a right to be racist, but you're infringing on someone's life, liberty, and property.
You're not doing that.
Listen, I'm not
saying that already integrated neighborhoods should be allowed to. I'm saying that if you want to start your own neighborhood, you should be allowed to put in your local constitution, you don't want said group of people coming in because you want to maintain some sort of freedom of association. I think Catholics should be allowed to do that. I think atheists should be allowed to do that. Blacks, Hispanics, Puerto Ricans, whatever. Any of these groups of people.
Tell you what, man. Here, how about this, right? The neighborhood that I work in, I used to live in a neighborhood in Canarsie. There was a lot of black people. There's also a lot of Jews, Italians, Irish, Spanish, blah, blah. Now it's about 90-something% black. But there's still the Jewish places like the Hebrew Educational Society, where when I was a kid, a lot of Jews would go there. You see the Hebrew Educational Society now opening its doors in the summer for summer camps and having black children go to camp there. Why? Because they want to stay in business. They're gonna have to cater to the neighborhood. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like you
do that, they can
choose. They can choose not. They can choose to say, listen, you can only come here if you're Jewish. The JCC, the Jewish Community Center, where I live, and it's in a predominantly like white and part Spanish area. I played basketball there. Me and my friends paid money to get a league there. I'm not Jewish. Most of the people that played basketball in the league there were not Jewish, but the Jews opened their doors. They opened their business to the community because it just made good business.
I think that's a good thing, but that's.
But I'm saying that. But you were talking about if they didn't want to do
that, they should be allowed to.
But you were talking about xenophobia is a good thing. But if the Jews were that xenophobic that they didn't want to open their doors to their community centers and their educational society to people of other religions and races, then they wouldn't stay in business. So how would that be good? How would that xenophobia be good for them? If they said, you know what, only Jews can come here. Okay, great. Good luck finding enough Jews in this neighborhood to keep your business alive. No, it wouldn't make any sense.
That's a very niche situation where I would agree with you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a general understanding amongst the nation that, by the way, is a Western Christian nation, the United States of America. It always has been.
Sure.
The majority of Americans have always been Western culturally and Christian That's a fact. It's also been mostly white. I don't think that means as much. But what I can say is that due to that fact, we should fear people who aren't those things. Not white, by the way. I'm excluding that. Aren't Western, aren't Westernized, because they are a threat, to our way of life. Because they have the power. They have the power to either one, outbirth us and make their culture the dominant culture, two, to promote policies that don't work in the interest of Western Christians.
How much of a threat am I to your survival if I'm an atheist? I'm not Christian. Am I a threat personally?
I don't know. What are your views on religion? Would you advocate? Would you advocate?
I would never.
Would you advocate removing? How about this? Would you advocate removing Christian values or making public school more popular than Christian school? I mean, what are your policies? I don't know.
My belief system is I would never advocate for any type of government action that would look to take away your freedom of religion. I don't give a shit enough about your religion.
So you don't think a teacher should get fired for wearing a cross to school?
Do I think the teachers should be fired for wearing a cross to school? I don't know. I don't know. If there's a policy, but here's the thing: if there's a policy, here's the great thing about America and freedom in this country. If there's a policy in a public school that says, separation of church and state, blah blah blah, then just go to a private.
By the way, what about distributing condoms to 14-year-olds?
This is another. Again, I had these arguments with the teachers when they wanted to kick my kid out of the class. I was like, listen, if you guys suck this bad at being teachers, I'm going to homeschool my kid. I was ready to homeschool my son over this bullshit that was going on, dude. You can homeschool. You do not have to participate in that. There's a Staten Island homeschoolers group on Facebook.
Why does the public schooling system have to be completely barren of Christian philosophical underpinnings? Christianity isn't the religion.
Because
we're talking about established churches when we're talking the Constitution. So what I'm asking you is, as an atheist, would you be against teaching Christian values? Now, I'm not talking about the Christian religion where you learn about how Jesus died for your sins. I'm talking about the philosophical of Christian values in schools.
I don't see that as
for example,
I don't see that has any scholarly value. I don't see that as having any scholarly value, especially in the sense that when you
doesn't have any scholarly value to teach people how to be good people.
Because this is what happens, dude. And then you're going to have Muslims saying, "Well, what about we have
it's negative to teach kids that they have a soul in school?"
Yeah, but dude, you can't get into that in a public school because
Why can't you?
Because a public school is open to the public, and the public includes Jews and Muslims. And let me tell you something.
What does that have to do with learning about soul?
Because, dude, if I guarantee, I don't know how it is where you live, but in New York, the Jews do not go for that at all. But the Jews are one of the most powerful.
Jews believe in a soul, though.
But they don't want their kids learning about Christian values in the public school. They vote hard. I'm telling you right now, Jewish people are very tight.
This goes back to freedom of association. Then in your town, in Jewish town, don't move into Christian town where there's Christian values, which is going to be a majority of the country. Move into Jewish town, or don't come to the United States if you don't like being taught about Christian values. This is our people. This is our society. This is our culture.
Why can't
we promote that in our education system like literally every other country on earth does?
I'm telling you, first of all, I'm not worried about what every other country does, but I'm telling you why you can't do that in New York. I'm telling you why you can't do that in a big city, because a public school is going to have a bunch of people from everywhere.
Sure. In New York, though, and as New York in a multicultural society where you're the hub of all the world trade going around and everything, I get that. So if that's going to be the hub of world trade, then you as a freedom of association say, we are not going to teach Christian values in school.
We're going to keep it open. We're going to be secular.
Tell the rest of the country that they can't.
Oh, listen, bro. You have schools in Texas that teach creationism.
I know. But I'm saying is you're probably not okay with that. If you are,
a buddy of mine. I'll tell you. I'll give you an example of my belief. Right here's an example. Here's the thing. I'll tell you this example, and I got 9 minutes because my girl's got a doctor's appointment at 2, so I got to go home.
Yeah, I'm cutting it off after 2 hours.
But check this out. I do want to know if any of the trolls have said anything. But before I get to that, I'll say this. I'll give you a quick example. A buddy of mine who's also an atheist, right? He posted something. He's more left wing than I am. He posted an article about how the state of Iowa passed laws about restricting abortion if there's a heartbeat that's sensed. which is very early in the pregnancy. And he posted as like some negative. And you know what my response was? What's good for people of Iowa is good for people of Iowa.
Okay.
Oh, you agree with that? I go, listen, I don't agree with it. I don't agree, but if it's good for Iowa, it's good for Iowa. Now, if Iowa passes a law that says you can't have an abortion when a heartbeat is sensed, and because of that law, chaos ensues, and they go to repeal that law, then that's not Iowa. That's not. I don't live in Iowa. You understand?
I get what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Except the fact that abortion. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I have a problem with what you're saying, though, because there is such a philosophical divide here that the government is choosing to accept as opposed to not accept. And that's the value of life principle. And that all starts with the belief in the divine spark of human life.
But you know why you can't
and it's chosen as opposed to accepting that premise to just deny it. And there's no philosophical basis anywhere for that.
But I have your answer for that, man. I have your answer for that. More state sovereignty, more local control. Because
but you can't do that with abortion. Otherwise, you're going to be having Kentuckians committing genocide on other Kentuckians, while other people are like, "Yo, we need to do something about this." We can't just let them do that. There has to be some sort of federal control. And I think you'd like the sort of federal control. And I think like the value of life principle is probably the most important thing that the federal government needs to protect.
When the genocide happens in Iowa, we'll talk about this. We'll read it.
Well, the genocide is happening. It is happening in many other states. It's called abortion.
I'm talking. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with this law passed in Iowa. We'll revisit it again. Maybe I'll follow up on it. Now, what do you got? Anything from the trolls? Anything from
the trolls? Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up now. Actually,
let's get to the trolls. The troll mail.
All right. So,
we gotta do this again, by the way.
Somebody told you, Danny, that Trump is a racist because my media said so. What do you say to that?
Okay, so what they're trying to, what that person's trying to say is because on the media, MSNBC, CNN, they're
because CNN told you that Trump is racist. He is one.
Yeah, Trump is racist. So that's why he thinks that I say Trump is racist because I listen to the media. First of all, if you know anything about me, you know that's not true. Second of all, I said in the beginning that I didn't say Trump was racist. I said if Trump isn't racist, then he's using xenophobia as a policy platform, and you agreed with it. Do I think that Trump is a racist? Here, I hear. I'm actually getting a phone call.
Yeah, no.
Decline it. It's my girl.
She doesn't know I'll be home in 5 minutes. So anyway, here's the thing. I don't know if Trump is a racist or not. I do know he's a businessman, and it's very difficult to be openly racist and be a successful businessman. Now, we saw what happened to Donald Sterling, who was openly racist with his phone conversation. He ended up losing his team. You see people that are openly racist, like people thought Papa John was being racist or whatever. And now he's not even a fucking CEO or the president of the pizza company he founded. So, Trump never lost a business like that due to racism. So is he racist? If he is racist, he's doing a good job of concealing the racism, the true racism. So I think that he's definitely, I think this with Trump, he's definitely found a market. And he definitely knows that there's a market for that kind of right-wing, xenophobic, nationalist market that was there.
Hold on, you're kind of.
He figured, you know what? If I'm abrasive enough with this and I say these things that no other politician is saying, I'm going to completely corner that market. And he has. I have people on my Facebook that are Republicans that are calling him the greatest president ever, or the second father of the country behind George Washington. That's what I'm getting. I was blowing up my phone. I'm gonna start heading back there. But, that's what I keep getting. That's what I keep seeing. They think he's the greatest. What Trump has done, he's completely cornered that market, dude. He has completely cornered it.
Okay, so that's my point, though. You're conflating racism. You're conflating racism and xenophobia and all these other practices.
So I mean, I don't know if he's racist or not, but he's definitely riled up a lot of racist sentiment.
I don't think he has. I think the racist sentiment was riled up by Black Lives Matter when they burned down Baltimore and Ferguson and started rioting all over the country and beating up white people.
Hold up, dude. Can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Let me see this. Yeah, say it again.
Oh, so what I was saying is I don't think that it was Trump that stirred up the xenophobia or whatever, or the I'm not even going to say racist, but just the cultural critiques of African Americans was after they burned down Ferguson and burned down Baltimore and started rioting all over the country, blocking freeways, beating up white people for literally no reason. I mean, all these different situations came about while Obama was president. Then come Trump later on. Trump was the reaction to that. And it's not racism. It's just a cultural critique of minority groups in the United States and how
we have to have a conversation about that.
Would you agree that external forces would cause IQs to lower? Yeah. So what I was talking about earlier is like things like inbreeding. Inbreeding lowers your IQ on average by like 10 points. So 10, 10, 10, 10. And I'm guessing maybe it plateaus or something at 60. I'm not sure what happens. I'm not an expert on IQ. What I do know is that like inbreeding, incestual relationships, the product of incest, usually leaves you with a lower IQ. There's about a 25% of that in incestual relationships. So when you see these cultures, you're going to have a lot more low IQ people than, let's say, other ones. And a lot of the reason for inbreeding is just usually tribalism and the division of people in these places. But all right, I think we're good. I think we're okay as far as questions go. We're gonna let Danny go and have his little thing with his girlfriend going on or whatever. But it was good to have him on. Anyways, have a good one, guys, and just remember, you're either far right or far wrong.